In this video, I will show you how to work the problems on self-test quiz significant figures and calculations, or Sig Figs in Calc as it's titled for short. So let's get right into it. Hey, the first question says perform the indicated arithmetic operation and round off the final answer to the correct number of significant figures. For simplicity, no units are shown on the numbers, but assume these numbers come from measurements and can be treated as directly measured data. Okay, here we're doing a multiplication, so we count significant figures. 11.00 has 4 significant figures, and 1.9 has 2 significant figures. The rule for multiplication is that when we multiply numbers, the answer can only have as many significant figures as the number with the fewest significant figures. So therefore, we will be limited to a 2 significant figure number. Now we can try multiplying this in our calculator. 11.00 times 1.9. And this gives me 20.9 on the calculator display. But calculators usually give too many significant figures. So we should not record the final answer as 20.9, which would imply 3 significant figures. But rather, we will record it as 21, which has only 2 significant figures. So we'll say our answer is 21 and go to the next question. Okay, question 2, perform the indicated arithmetic operations and round off the answer to the correct number of significant figures. Okay, the usual verbiage, don't round off intermediate answers and assume they come from measurements. Okay, now we have subtractions. With addition and subtraction, we count decimal places, not significant figures. And the answer can only have as many significant figures as the number with the fewest, or rather, the answer only have as many decimal places as the number with the fewest decimal places. So we have 2 decimal places in 7.15. We have 1 decimal place in 4.1 and 3 decimal places in 2.868. The number of decimal places is the number of digits you have to the right of the decimal point. So getting our calculator back up here, we'll put in 7.15 minus 4.1 minus 2.868. Okay, the calculator says 0.182. Well, it does not show the leading 0, but I tend to put those. So 0.182. But how much of that should I actually show? My least precise number has only 1 decimal place, or only 1 digit past the decimal point. So I should only show 1 digit past the decimal point. And the 8 that follows the 1 will force me to round that 1 up to a 2. And so round it off to 1 decimal place, okay, 0.2, okay, because our number was 0.182. So rounded to 1 decimal place, that's 0.2. Okay, going on to question 3, we're going to do a multiplication followed by a division. Well, they follow the same rules. In multiplication and division, you count significant figures. So 2.85 has 3 significant figures. 1.003 has 4 significant figures. And 1.1695 has 5 significant figures. The number with the fewest significant figures is the 2.85, which has only 3 significant figures. So we will be limited to an answer with 3 significant figures. Now we'll use the calculator to get the nominal value, or the number that'll be displayed on the calculator, and then we will round that appropriately to 3 significant figures. So we're going to multiply 2.85 by 1.003, and then we're going to divide by 1.1695. And here's the number in the calculator, this number 2.444249679. But again, calculators usually give you way more figures than you actually need, or that can be expected to be reliable. This number came from numbers having 3 significant figures, 4 significant figures, and 5 significant figures. And in multiplication and division, we're counting significant figures. The one with the fewest had only 3. So this can't be any better than 3 Sig Figs. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, and that's going to be our last significant figure. The next number is not 5 or higher, so we don't round up. We just truncate or drop off what follows. And so our final answer is 2.44, being expressed to 3 significant figures. And so 2.44. Okay, question 4. Okay, now we have a multiplication and division, but we also have a subtraction inside the parentheses. And of course, parentheses take precedence over other things. So we will first need to figure out what is that quantity in parentheses. Now, of course, calculator-wise, you could certainly put it all in. And so if I enter that exactly as it's shown, I would have 52.9 times, open parentheses, 46.7 minus 23.184 and then close parentheses, and then divided by 18.25. And so we get an answer, but the question is, where do we round that? Where is the last significant figure? Now, subtraction and multiplication and division don't follow the same rules, so you might want to break this down into parts. If we do the 46.7 and we subtract 23.184, the calculator gives us 23.516. But we have a 1 decimal place number and a 3 decimal place number. We're limited to only 1 decimal place. So if that were a final answer, I would write it as 23.5. And so what I might want to do is get a pen and then over here and make a statement about what is that quantity in parentheses. Well, it's 23 on a calculator. It's 23.516 but that's only significant to 1 decimal place. So subtraction-wise, it counts as a 1 decimal place number. But then when it's used in the multiplication and division, where you're now counting significant figures, not decimal places, once you've crunched that down to 1 single number, we now look at it as a 3 significant figure number. And so 52.9 has 3 significant figures. This number in parentheses ends up having 3 significant figures. And then we're dividing by a number with 4 significant figures. So the smallest number of significant figures we encountered here is 3. And so we should round this to 3 figures. So our original answer was this 68.1641863 number. Okay, so we count 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that third digit there, that 1, is the last significant figure. But since the number following is a 6, we'll round that up to a 2, and we'll say that 68.2 is our answer, 68.2. So we're going to type in here 68.2. And then we'll move on to the next question. And I'm going to need to clear the previous work there. Okay, this is giving us a number 3.3 divided by a quantity in parentheses. And of course, we have to evaluate the quantity in parentheses first. And so you divide the 3.3 by the sum of those. Now again, if you weren't worried about significant figures, you could certainly enter that in your calculator immediately and get an answer, right? 3.3 divided by, open parentheses, 8.567 plus 10.0660. And then close parentheses and then enter. So there's the answer. But how should that be expressed? Well, let's see if we can speed this up a little bit by doing some rough work in our head instead of writing everything down. We know that a number like 8, right? This is 8.567, right? So we got a number like 8, right? 8 point something, and we got another number like 10 point something. So if I add 8 and 10, I'm going to get 18. And then the 0.5 and the 0.06, I doubt that's going to end up making it go to 19. You can see it's going to be 18 point something. But even if it did go to 19, it would still be a number with 2 numbers before the decimal point and then some decimal places. Right, but it looks like this one's going to be 18 point something, right? 10 and 8, and then you add the decimal parts of the number. It's not going to be enough to get you to 19. So it's going to be 18 point something. But we've got numbers with 3 decimal places and 4 decimal places, which means we're going to be allowed 3 decimal places. So how many significant figures is that going to have? Well, you're going to have the 2 numbers 1 and 8, right? The 18 in the integer part of the number. And then you're going to have the 3 decimal places following that are significant. So what you get in parentheses is going to come out to a 5 significant figure number. But you're dividing it into only a 2 significant figure number. So you're only going to be allowed 2 figures in the answer. So that would be the 1 and the 7, which is going to end up being rounded up to an 8 because the next number is more than 5. So we're going to get 0.18. I like to write the leading zeros. Remember, they're not significant. So you're going to get 0.18, and that's going to be your answer rounded off to 2 significant figures. Okay, so 0.18. Okay, and then let's go on to question 6. Okay, now we got another simpler one because they all follow the same rule. So those are the ones that are easy. When you have mixed arithmetic, where you have some parts of the problem that follow one rule and some that follow another rule, that's when you have to stop and think a little bit. Multiplication and division follow the same set of rules, or same rule, I should say. It's just one rule that says that the answer can only have as many significant figures as the number with the fewest significant figures. So 1.500 has 4 significant figures. 21.8 has 3, and 0.87 has only 2, because zeros at the beginning of a number are not significant. So we're going to be limited to 2 significant figures in our answer. So now it's just a matter of putting it in the calculator. 1.500 times 21.8 divided by 0.87. We get this answer, 37.5862069, but we're only allowed 2 significant figures, so we count 1, 2, and then the 7 in 37 gets rounded up to an 8 because the next number is 5. Okay, so we're going to report the answer as 38. Okay, that'll be a 2 significant figure answer. Okay, question 7. Very simple one here, only 2 numbers and they're multiplied together. One has 3 significant figures, one has 2 significant figures. So the answer will have only 2 significant figures. We just need to multiply 2.76 by 1.8, and then we round the final answer to 2 figures. So 4.968 rounded to 2 figures. You count 1, 2, right? But the number following the 9 is more than 5. So that 9 has to round up. Well, it's at the top of the numbers, right? So, I mean, it's 9. The next number is going to be 10. So that's going to roll over to a 0. And the 1's going to carry over to 4 and make a 5. So rounded up to 2 significant figures, that is 5.0. And I think this might be one of those questions that where people say, well, Mr. Robinson, I had it right. It's just that I put 5 instead of 5.0. Well, if this problem were about something other than significant figures, like if it's about calculating what mass of precipitate you could make, then I might not worry so much about the significant figures. But here, the whole thrust of the problem is significant figures. And so the answer 5 is wrong, even though mathematically it's the same as 5.0, but what's different is the precision. Okay, that 5 is going to be 5, give or take about 1. So somewhere between 4 and 6. In other words, 5 is already your uncertain or estimated digit. And 5.0 is 5, give or take about 0.1. So now the answer is between 4.9 and 5.1, okay, where 5 is now a certain digit and it is the 0 that has been estimated. So 5 and 5.0 do not have the same meaning here. Okay, number 8, we've got 2 numbers added together in parentheses, and then that's divided by 2 other numbers added in parentheses. Now, of course, we know when we do the division that what's going to apply there is significant figures, not decimal places. But in the addition problem, decimal places is what we're going to count. Okay, so if I work each of those out, this might be one where I want to show things. But again, if you can kind of see it in your head, you can fast track it a little bit. Let me find my pen here. Okay, one menu is covering up another. Okay, sorry for the delay. I hate it when that happens. Look around, just can't find my pen. Or I click it and it doesn't work. Okay, so if we add these numbers together, then I might just do that externally so that I don't have to keep switching back and forth between pen and something else. So you try this with me with a calculator. If you get 2.963 and you add it to 4.82, your calculator says 7.783. Okay, but this came from a number with three decimal places and one with 2 decimal places. So we're only allowed 2 decimal places. So if this number is later used in a multiplication or division, it counts as a 3 significant figure number rather than a 2 decimal place number, because in multiplication and division, you count significant figures. So it has 2 decimal places. Even though I got that 3 there, I'm not going to drop it off because it's an intermediate answer, but it has 3 significant figures for multiplication's sake. Now this, or for division's sake. Okay, so this other one, that other set of parentheses, okay, there I'm taking 1.532 and I'm adding 1.496 and I get 3.028. And this time I have 3 decimal places in both numbers. So I'm good out to the last decimal place. So now I'm supposed to take that number that each of these parentheses expressions crunch down to. I'm supposed to divide one by the other. Now I've got 7.783 divided by 3.028, but I have to regard the numbers as having 3 significant figures and 4 significant figures. So my answer will have only 3. Okay, at this point, I'll bring the calculator back and do the final work. So I've got 7.783, and I'm going to divide it by 3.028, which gives me this number 2.570343461. But we have again a 3-figure number divided by a 4-figure number. We only have 3 figures, so 1, 2, 3. 0 is not enough to round up, so 2.57 is my answer. And if you want to make sure you didn't make a mistake anywhere, of course, you can then try entering it in full, and you should get that same answer. So if we put in 2.963 plus 4.82, then close parentheses, and then divide by, and then open parentheses, 1.532 plus 1.496, and close. And you get that same answer, right? Same digits all the way down, but we've already seen that we're only going to report it as 2.57. Okay, question 9, and let me clear the writing off the board. Okay, let's see if we can fast track this one, because our time is kind of is winding down, right? We got five minutes and some odd seconds, and we still got one more question after this. If I add 0.1167 and 2.8, that's going to be 2.9 something, isn't it? The 0.1, that first decimal in that first number, the 0.1 is going to add to that 0.8, make 0.9. You're going to get 2.9167. You can kind of see that in your head. That sum is going to be 2.9167. And it's going to be good to only one decimal place, because although one number has 4 decimal places, the other has only 1. So you're looking at a number like, if it were the final answer, it'd be 2.9. Okay, so it's as a division number as a number to divide by, it's going to have 2 significant figures. Now the number on top has 3 significant figures, but the number on the bottom is going to come out to only have 2 significant figures. Because again, you can pretty much see it, right? It's 2.9167, but you would have to underline the 9 in that number if it were the final answer. It'd be allowed only one place. So it's a 1 decimal place number, or a 2 significant figure number when used in the division. Top number has 3 significant figures, but the bottom number has only 2. So we're going to only be able to carry 2 figures. So now we can just put it in here, 8.52. And then we're going to divide by, let's say, open parentheses, even though I said what it was, just to be thorough, 0.1167, and then we're going to add 2.8, and we're going to close parentheses to lock that up in a little box that it has to do that first. It's going to add those together to get 2.9167. Then it will divide that into the 8.52. There's our answer, but we're allowed only 2 figures, so 1, 2. And the third figure is not 5 or higher, so we do not round up. So our final answer is 2.9. And then we go to our 10th and final question. And we start, we end on a simple note, right? Just a multiplication of 2 numbers. So we're going to multiply 0.045 by 571.23. And so there's our answer in the calculator, 25.70535. Now, how should we round that? Well, 0.045 has only 2 significant figures, because zeros at the beginning of a number are not significant. So that has only 2 significant figures. The other number has 571.23, because it has 5 non-zero digits, and all non-zero digits are significant. That has 5 significant figures, but the other one has only 2. We're limited to 2 figures, so 25.7 will round off to 26. So we'll put that in as 26, and that was the last question, so now we have a Submit Quiz button, and we'll see how we did. And we've got them all right. Our current score is 100 out of 100. Okay, and we took 28 minutes on it, so just a couple of minutes short of the 30-minute time limit. And notice, I did that while explaining everything I was doing. And you don't have to explain what you're doing, so you will probably be able to work it faster than I did. And if you look through here, a lot of times, excuse me, it'll have feedback. Okay, so these problems, if you review the quiz after you've submitted it, it will show you exactly how that final answer was arrived at. Have the calculation, it'll have some discussion. And so in addition to the video, even if you didn't have this video that I just made, you've got full explanation in the feedback of these questions. But I also wanted you to have a video Particularly for those of you that are auditory learners, you learn better by hearing it or perhaps seeing me work it as I explain it rather than just trying to read about it later. But I just wanted to point out that there's also a written explanation there in the feedback of all these questions. Okay, so that's my work on the self-test, Sig Figs, and Calc. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found that helpful.